This is Amy Nielsen, editor of SeedWorld US. Today I'm here with Diane Blazek, the Executive Director of the National Garden Bureau and All-America Selections, about the All-America Selections. We're here at the ASTA Vegetable and Flower Conference in Monterey, California. Thank you so much, Diane, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always fun to talk about what I do.
Oh, I bet. And I'm very interested to learn more about the process for sure. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is just how these selections are made, what goes into it, and what it means for the industry once they are out there. So for those people who may not be super familiar with the All-America Selections, can you start by giving us a little overview of the All-America Selections and the significance to the gardening community?
Absolutely. That's going to be a lot in one. So you may have to add some other questions. But
okay.
So we are a nonprofit plant trialing organization. And what I like to equate it with is a good housekeeping seal of approval or an underwriter laboratory seal of approval. So we have volunteer judges all over North America, and they trial our entries, which are always new, never before sold varieties. They are seed varieties as well as non-seed propagated varieties. Our volunteer judges rate them next to what we call experimental controls, like current varieties that are on the market. And then they are asked to determine, do these perform better in the garden than things currently on the market? And if they do, then they are a potential AAS winner.
That's very, very comprehensive and very brief. I appreciate it. So about the process, what kind of process do you use to make the selections?
Oh, it is pretty involved. It usually takes about a year for most of our annual crops and our edible crops. For our perennials, it takes 3 to 3.5 years. So what we start with is the breeders, which are from around the world. We're dealing with everybody, North America, Europe, Asia, all over. And they submit their new, never before sold varieties to our trials. And then it goes to our comparison committees, which are industry experts, the seed buyers, the seed breeders, they know their stuff. And they pick the comparisons, which are usually 2 comparisons of current varieties on the market. And those are grown next to our entries. And then the judges have this big, long list of traits. They're asked to rate yield, productivity, plant size, plant health, maturity date, color, taste. It's a long list. And so then our judges fill out the scores on an app. So we all send them out there with their iPhones or iPads or whatever. And they put their scores in. And then we do the mathematical equation and say, is this a potential AAS winner or not? And if it is, then we go back to the breeder and we start to talk about what their current inventory is, what their expected first year sales are. And then it goes to our board of approval, our board of directors for approval as an AAS winner.
So I think you talked a little bit about it, but are there any specific criteria for evaluation that you would like to mention? And are they different for the different types of plants?
Yes, excellent question, because the criteria is different for almost every entry. Now, there's some industry standards. I mean, everybody's breeding now for better disease resistance, drought resistance, drought tolerance. So that is a common theme that we're seeing right now. All edibles have to have good taste. They have to have the flavor. They have to have the texture, because you may have the prettiest, reddest tomato and it matures in 30 days, but if it doesn't taste good, it's not going to sell. So yes, taste and texture is absolutely mandatory on everything edible. If you look at an annual, my favorite example that I give is somebody may breed a petunia that is the most weather hardy, and it will just grow and grow and grow without any fertilizer or whatever. But if it only puts 2 flowers on, then it's not going to be a good AAS winner. That is an extreme example, but it's an example I like to use.
Now, how many winners are we talking about per year?
Here's the interesting thing. We get asked all the time, well, do you have a certain quota? Like, if you have 50 entries, does that mean you have to have 25 entries? No. everything is judged on its own merit. So it has to outperform the comparisons in order to become an AS winner. And we've had 30 winners. COVID year, we only had 6 winners because unfortunately a lot of our judges couldn't even get into their trials. They were prohibited. So that's the low, was 6. But more traditionally, it's like in the teens, the number of winners we have every year.
And what part of the year are these determined?
So we get the scores in October, and that's when I notify the breeders, you have a possible AAS winner or sorry. And then they have the option as to when they actually accept the award. So we have announcements in November and January and in July. So they choose the announcement time that makes sense for their company, that product, the end audience, that kind of thing.
So let's talk a little bit about the importance of these selections to home gardeners and commercial horticulture.
So let me go back to those comparisons because I think that's the best explanation. When we have a comparison, we ask that breeder to donate the seed to our trial. So if you're a breeder, you may be donating one of your best-selling products that will go against a trial entry. What if that entry performs better and displaces it in the market? So all these breeders continue to donate the seeds and the cuttings as comparisons. That tells us the value they place on the trialing process. So what it does is it's an independent, it's a nonprofit, it's volunteer judges. So they're giving their time to really say, this is a good thing. So it's always, like a rising tide, rising tide raises all ships. Is that the right terminology there? So that's what I feel like AAS gives to the industry, is always improving the value and the quality that the end consumer gets, is because it's been tested against other really good varieties.
Anything else you want to tell us about the AAS trial gardens?
We are always looking for new judges. We do have about 80 judges right now, but there's always changes. And it actually can be a very good company asset to be involved in the trialing process, especially if maybe you're a broker or a dealer or a retailer, you want to see what's coming from the breeders, then you might want to be an AAS trial site. So that, to me, even if you're a breeder, you get to see what the other breeders are coming out with, because as a judge, you're seeing all this new stuff. And of course, our judges always try to guess, like, oh, I wonder which breeder that's from. And we get to surprise them quite often, which is fun. But yeah, that's also a huge value to a lot of the companies in the industry.
So based on your experience with the selections, have you noticed any trends in gardening or plant breeding that are particularly exciting or significant to the industry?
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 14 years. And I would say the biggest thing I've seen in the last 14 years is compactness for patio and container growing. Enough so that we added 3 new trials to our repertoire, because we've always done in-ground trials. Well, now we have container trials. And especially in the edible vegetable world, people are wanting to grow cucumbers on their balcony. And you can do it now with the new breeding, the work that's coming out. So I would say with edibles, the container aspect, and then across the board, the breeders are wanting to make the home gardener more successful. So disease resistance is very, very, very high on the list, and very commonly one of the traits that we're judging for.
So what about climate change? How is it impacting the process? And are there any types of plants that are being selected in recent years just to combat climate change?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Drought tolerance is another trait that we're seeing. So the breeders are really working on things that have a lower water needs. And that makes all the difference in the world for the home gardener, so they can do that less. USDA just announced the new changes in the USDA zone report. So we are noticing that our judges maybe can plant a little earlier, because we don't tell the judges when to plant. They're experts. And so if Mississippi says, I'm going to plant my tomatoes out in March, we're like, okay. And Chicago's not going to plant them until June. But if they're able to plant them a little earlier, we overall get a longer season. So that helps us also compiling all the scores and getting the information from our judges.
So based on all your experience in the program, what advice would you give to plant breeders who maybe want to have their variety become an All-America selection?
That's a really, really good question. And of course, it's something that I talk about every time I'm with the breeders. Every company has a different strategic reason why they enter the trials. They may have a series. Let's talk ornamentals for a little bit. They may have a series that they introduced a couple years ago, but they've got this cool new color. It's unique. So we all know how that series is doing, but then they want a little bump up in sales. So, and I have been talking to breeders about an AAS winner versus a non-AAS winner that's maybe in the same series or very similar or something. And we know that there's a significant advantage sales-wise to having an AAS winner. And I just met with a retailer too who said, oh my gosh, we are always going to feature the AAS winners because, they sell XYZ. I mean, somebody was just telling me an astonishing number of an older winner that they have been putting on their website, and they just can't believe the number of seed packets that are selling because it's an established AAS winner.
It's really interesting.
It is fascinating. Yeah. And it's really fun to hear about some of these sales figures and success stories from using the AAS winners. Yeah.
It's kind of a psychological experiment in some ways. Too.
Yeah. It really is. Yeah.
If it has this branding, are you going to use it?
Yeah. But I think, we've been around for 94 years, and it's really cool. The number of people that say, oh, I used to, look through my grandma's seed catalog and I saw this brand, and now, I'm gardening and my kids are gardening and we want to keep using it. So there's that longevity part of it. And then, like I said earlier, it's a seal of approval. You have all these judges who are saying, it did well. I want it in my home garden. We put that information on our website. There's a space for judges' comments, and you can see what the judges are saying about these winners. So yeah, it's all interesting and exciting, and yeah.
Anything that stands out to you in this most recent crop of winners?
Uniqueness, I think. So we have two broccoli winners. One is called Purple Magic. So it's a purple head broccoli. And then the other one is called Sky Tree, and it is a stem broccoli. So what you have here is not your same old broccoli. And it's interesting because when I'm giving talks to consumers or master gardeners, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm like, come on, if you have limited space in your garden, a green bell pepper is very affordable at the grocery store. So why don't you grow the red bell pepper? In fact, that's one of our new winners too. We have a red Lamoyo type pepper called Red Impact. And so if you can buy a pepper for 99 cents at the store, grow the ones that cost $3.99 at the store, because you're getting a lot more economical value out of your gardening space. And it does seem like the unique things are what you always want. A basic, you always want a beefsteak tomato, but then you can kind of brag a little when you're serving these to friends and family. Like, look at this huge purple headed cauliflower. Isn't this really cool? And I grew it.
Yeah, I don't think people usually think about it in that way. That's really interesting.
It's like the economic aspect of gardening in my mind. If you have limited space, grow the unique stuff. Why not? Because then it's really fun and you can get everybody excited about it.
Okay. So let's talk about the future of the AAS program.
Yeah.
And how do you see it evolving? Anything in the near future that would impact that?
Well, I will say we've changed a ton in like the last 5 or 10 years. We've added so much. 10 years ago, we didn't have a perennial trial. We have a perennial trial. 5 years ago, we didn't have container trials, and we have that now. So we have added a lot. Actually, as of today, we are becoming a merged organization with National Garden Bureau. So that's, for years and years, has been our sister organization, but now it's our mother, I guess is the way to say it, but we're officially merging. Legally, we are one nonprofit organization now. That is going to bring, I think, a lot of opportunity for additional marketing of our AAS winners. Simply staff time, it's an operational saving, so we'll be doing that. I'm hearing so much about sustainability and, of course, pollinators. So I'm not making any promises, but it's things that we're talking about. How do we evaluate the value from a sustainability aspect, or, for pollinators? We're not a research organization, we're a trialing organization. So that we might have to partner with somebody on, but of course it's important. So we've got to consider it for the future.
Well, and collaboration is just so vital.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today, and hopefully we'll talk about other things. You've spurred a lot of ideas in my mind about future topics. So.
Okay. We will be here and happy to share.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.